I want to see if you can guess who it is I'm doing an impression of. All right, let me get into character. You gotta guess who it is, though. Okay, here goes. Hey, if you do anything wrong in your life, and I find out about it, I'm gonna try to take everything away from you. And I don't care when I find out. Could be today, tomorrow, 15, 20 years from now. If I find out, you're finished. Who's that? That's you. That's what the audience sounds like to me.
Well, Dave Chappelle is back. He just released a new stand-up special on Netflix. In it, he takes aim at what he calls cancel culture. That's the impulse, recognizable to anyone who pays attention, to fire or unperson anyone who questions our woke overlords.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, they will never hurt me. That old adage has long been the go-to response to schoolyard insults and bullying since our grandparents were jumping double dutch and playing football with leather helmets. But does it still hold true today, what with weaponized words and cancel culture grabbing headlines and generating controversy? This week, iconic comedian Dave Chappelle put the moral message of sticks and stones to the test with his newly released comedy special on Netflix, aptly entitled Sticks and Stones.
The effect? Well, audiences love the show. On Rotten Tomatoes, 99% of viewers gave it a positive rating, but critics hated it. Why? Not because it wasn't funny. It is funny. The problem is that it offends them. He says things they don't think you ought to be allowed to say, even for the sake of comedy.
Chappelle addressed many of the most pressing issues facing modern culture today, from LGBTQ rights to the opioid epidemic to mass shootings, and like sharks to Amity Island beaches, the morality critics were out for blood, including critic Taylor Hosking, who wrote in Vice that he chooses to blatantly ignore the historic criticism against his style of comedy and new loud and clear criticism from the trans community. As he keeps going down this path, drawing attention to the worst aspects of his important career, the biggest cost will be the tarnishing of his own legacy.
I mean, Chappelle's been doing this for a long time. This is the type of comedy he does. It is a different era, I guess. Some of the people who, I guess, loved him a couple of years ago now are turning on him, saying he's lazy. I think it is the culture we live in. It's the Blue Checkmark Brigade. It's the No Fun Club. It's people who, if you don't agree with what they say or they don't agree with what you say, they just want to cancel you. It is really cancel culture.
I've never heard you say a single political thing. I think not ever. And I think it's about control. I think they want to control you, and when they can't, they get really mad.
I've been on this show and said things that I guess people would say a conservative audience would disagree with.
Yeah.
And I still get criticized. They're not even listening to what I say. It's like, did you look at the words out of my mouth?
Because they can't control you. Dave Portnoy won't be controlled. Thank you for doing it.
Always
Appreciate
a pleasure.
it.
Dave Chappelle's latest Netflix series, because the usual miserable lefties who've cancelled comedy as well, because it's all about grievance porn now. It's all about standing up and, you know, saying righteous things about
tell us who Dave Chappelle is.
Well, Dave Chappelle, if you don't know him, you're missing out. He is an absolute comedic genius. Had a Chappelle show for several years on the Comedy Channel, and he's done this stand-up special, and he just has a go at everybody. He's not some conservative. He has a go at conservatives, he has a go at every sacred cow, and he talked about abortion. Now just have a look at this. That bait and switch there was genius. And at the end, James, he says, If I'm wrong, perhaps we're wrong.
And this is the
Figure
thing.
that out for yourself.
So this is the thing. Chappelle's comedy has for a long, long time. It's really played with the sort of the dominant sort of ethos of things and flipped things around, especially around race. But now today, I would say that Dave Chappelle, I don't know how familiar Australians are with George Carlin and his 7 dirty words, which sort of blew up all the establishment niceties. Now Chappelle, coming at it from this crazy side-on perspective, is now blowing up all of the, I think, pieties of the establishment, and they hate it. And he's been canceled by Vice and all these other lefty websites who all think we should all be sitting there very seriously pretending to laugh at Hannah Gadsby. I mean, come on, it's a joke. But he
Even
is
Hannah
hilarious.
Gadsby says she's not funny. Even she says her comedy special.
No, because
she said it wasn't about laughs. It was
Because
about
what is
impact.
today's comedy? It's like just standing there going, hey, Trump, am I right?
Trump.
You know, oh yeah, oh that's so funny, you know.
But, you know, we've got our abortion debate happening here in New South Wales, and this is absolutely critical because the point he's making, sure, if you say it's the woman's choice, that's fine. Then the man has the choice to not be involved in the kid's upbringing. I mean, that is a fascinating argument. It's a fascinating insight. No one's put that out there before. It's critical to this whole abortion debate. And the big...
Well, I guess it challenges the notion that men don't have any say in this debate.
Yes, that's exactly
I think
right.
that's what it's
Exactly
doing.
right.
I don't think we're advocating for, men abandoning their responsibility.
No, but it's a
point, but he's showing the flaw in the argument, in the whole pro-choice argument. I think it's brilliant. And it's fascinating that because people like Gladys Berejiklian here have thrown this, abortion has sort of sat there under the radar for so long, people just went, well, let's just not touch it. It's a ticking time bomb. Just let things happen as they were. Nah, the left have waded in. Let's open this box and see what's in here. And it's a nightmarish debate.
For the past couple of years, we've reported in some detail, some horrifying detail, on how the professional left has totally transformed the city of San Francisco from this country's most beautiful city, our Cape Town, into a cesspool of filth, homelessness, and drug addiction. That is not an exaggeration. There are now more junkies in San Francisco than there are high school students. And so you won't be surprised to learn that the city has also become threatening and dangerous. The rate of property crime in San Francisco is the highest of any big city in America. More than 6 cars are smashed and robbed every single day of the year. It's a disaster. But don't worry, the city's leaders have a plan to respond to this. And of course, it's not more cops or better enforcement of the law. That would be bigoted. Instead, the city of San Francisco has decided to ban words that suggest San Francisco has a crime problem. People aren't allowed to talk about crime. Maybe they won't notice crime exists. That's the thinking. So last month, the city's Board of Supervisors decreed that there will be no more convicted felons in San Francisco. Going forward, ex-cons are to be called, quote, justice-involved individuals. Well, as it happens, the people they committed crimes against are also, quote, justice-involved individuals. So, in other words, victim and criminal are now morally indistinguishable. That's on purpose. This is woke equality. But there's a problem. Back in Washington, leaders of the Democratic Party apparently haven't gotten the memo on this, and some are still using the term felon, which is the real F word. So you might want to send the kids from the room as we play the following clip. We warn you, it's ugly.
An overwhelming majority of Americans agree that anyone trying to buy a gun should at least have to prove that they're not a or somebody legally prohibited from owning one.
And I do support full restoration of rights to vote.
I think the policy of deporting made sense.
For all those young men, mostly of color, who got arrested and are now for life for selling that weed on the corner.
Every law-abiding citizen has a right to have a gun unless you're a
What enabled that young man to get a gun he was not entitled to. He was a and he had a conviction.
Sorry about all the F words. How insensitive can you get? Someone better call HR. Meanwhile, back in the city of San Francisco, there are no longer any juvenile delinquents. That whole category has disappeared. Criminals under 18 are now referred to as, quote, young people impacted by the juvenile justice system, as if the system and not the kid committed the crime, which is what the left, in fact, believes. It's your fault, not theirs. Check your privilege, middle America. Drug addicts, meanwhile, in San Francisco are now called people with a history of substance abuse. rather use. Use, not abuse. Get it? Heroin addicts are now the same as insulin-dependent diabetics. Both use substances. You can't call one better than the other. They're both exactly the same. Now, you could laugh this off. It's San Francisco, after all, where all the crazy things happen. But think through the implications. Language makes thought possible. When the words disappear, so does our ability to think about the ideas the words represent. When they prevent you from saying the obvious, over time it becomes impossible to see the obvious. And that's exactly, of course, why they do it. Those who control your words control your mind.